Today we will discuss about anti-Parkinsonian drugs. So these anti-Parkinsonian drugs are characterized by rigidity and trembling of head, forward tilt of trunk, reduced arm swinging, rigidity and trembling of extremities, and shuffling gait with short steps. Okay, so these are the symptoms of the anti-Parkinsonism. And the next, what is Parkinsonism? It is an extrapyramidal motor disorder. It occurs due to degeneration of dopaminergic neurons in the substantia nigra, that is, result in dopamine deficiency. So due to the deficiency of dopamine, this Parkinsonism will occur. It occurs in 2% of elderly population. It is a disease 7th decade of life. Okay, an imbalance between dopaminergic and excitatory cholinergic neurons, this cholinergic overactivity takes place. So due to the imbalance between dopaminergic receptors and the cholinergic neurons, this Parkinsonism will occur. Then it is mainly characterized by, as we already discussed, that is tremors, resting tremors, pill rolling motion of hand, right? Then suppressed by activity and sleep. Pill rolling motion means that a circular movement or tremor of the tips of the thumb and the index finger. That is called as pill rolling motion. Then gait disturbances, that is imbalance and loss of writing reflexes. Then rigidity, an increase in intestine resistance to passive movement. Then bradykinesia, slow onset of movement or paucity of movement. So these are the main symptoms of Parkinsonism. Now coming to the pathophysiology and treatment of this Parkinsonism. Normally in the basal ganglia, the dopaminergic activity is balanced by the cholinergic system. So in normal condition, the dopaminergic, that is levels of dopamine, is equal to that of the cholinergic system, that is noradrenaline, right? But whenever Parkinsonism results due to depletion of dopamine in relation to cholinergic activity, so dopamine will be decreased when compared to that of the acetylcholine. And it also occurs due to anti-dopaminergic drugs. We are saying that the name itself is saying anti-dopaminergic means that it decreases the levels of dopamine so that the Parkinsonism will occur. Then examples, phenothiazines. These are anti-dopaminergic drugs. Haloperidol, methyl-dopa, etc. These drugs cause Parkinsonism. Now coming to the treatment, we have to balance the dopamine with that of the acetylcholine, so that we have to restore the normal dopamine, or we have to decrease the acetylcholine activity at muscarinic receptor in the striatum. Okay, so this is the strategy. What is the treatment we have to give for Parkinsonism? Now, in the case of Parkinsonian persons, the degeneration of darkly pigmented dopaminergic neurons in substantia nigra takes place. So, dopamine undergoes oxidation converted into neuromelanin. So that what will happen when dopamine undergoes oxidation? The dopamine levels decreases, so that decrease of dopamine in the neostriatum takes place, right? So this is the mechanism of action of how the Parkinsonism will occur. Now coming to the types of Parkinsonism, there are two types of Parkinsonism: idiopathic Parkinsonism, then secondary Parkinsonism. Idiopathic Parkinsonism is in turn called as Parkinson's disease. Secondary Parkinsonism, it is due to infection, right? Infection means due to toxins, release of toxins, or due to degenerative disease of CNS, that is called as Wilson's disease. Some of the drugs, as we discussed in the previous session, that is previous slide, phenothiazines, butyrophenones, metoclopramide, haloperidol, these are anti-dopaminergic drugs. When you take these drugs, the secondary Parkinsonism will occur, that is called as secondary Parkinsonism. Mainly Parkinson's disease is a idiopathic Parkinsonism. Now coming to the anti-Parkinsonian drugs, dopaminergic drugs, these are two categories of drugs, dopaminergic drugs and anticholinergic drugs, because the level of dopamine will be decreased in the Parkinson's disease, so that we have to imbalance the dopamine. And the same way we have to decrease the acetylcholine concentration, so that we have to give the anticholinesterase drugs. So the drugs we have to use for anti-Parkinsonism are two types, that is dopaminergic drugs, that is agonist for dopamine, and anticholinergic drugs. So now coming to the dopaminergic drugs, there are dopamine precursor, that is levodopa, dopamine agonist, ergot, non-ergot category. Ergot category example bromocriptine, whereas non-ergot category pyridine, ropinirole, pramipexole. Then another classification of drugs under this dopaminergic drugs is MAO-B inhibitors, monoamine oxidase B inhibitor, that is salicylic. That is also called as deprenyl, right? Then apart from this, we are having peripheral decarboxylase inhibitors, carbidopa and benzodiazide. Then after that, COMT inhibitor. COMT means catechol oxo-ardomethyl transferase. This inhibitor, where it is useful, this COMT is useful in the metabolism. Okay, so if you inhibit this COMT, then we can restore the dopamine, right? Examples: entacapone, tolcapone. And now coming to the anticholinergic drugs. These are anticholinergics and antihistaminics. There are two types here. Okay, then anticholinergics, we know that trihexyphenidyl, benhexol, procyclidine, piperidine. Antihistaminic, orphenadrine, promethazine. Okay, coming to the dopaminergic drugs, we are having another one, dopamine facilitator. The best example is amantadine, right? So this is the classification of drugs used for Parkinsonism. Now coming to the levodopa. This is the first one, dopamine precursor, that is levodopa. Now coming to that, it is a metabolic precursor of dopamine. It is inactive by itself. Okay, so initially it is inactive, it undergoes oxidation, that is, it undergoes metabolism, it converted into active metabolite. 95% of the oral dose is decarboxylated in the peripheral tissue, converted into dopamine. So this dopamine is useful. Only about 1 to 2% of administered dopamine crosses to the brain. Always used in combination with carbidopa or benzodiazide. Carbidopa and benzodiazide are peripheral decarboxylase inhibitors, right? Now if you see the mechanism here, levodopa, that is in the periphery, by peripheral dopa decarboxylase enzyme converted to dopamine, right? And this dopamine passes across to the blood-brain barrier and attaches to the D2 receptors, right? It causes, due to this, causes nausea and vomiting. And this dopamine, it leads to, and whatever the levodopa, that is decarboxylated to dopamine. The remaining 1 to 2% of the levodopa is transferred to the basal ganglia, crosses to the blood-brain barrier, then by dopa decarboxylase enzyme converted to dopamine, and this dopamine interacts with the D2 receptors in the basal ganglia. We can get the relief from symptoms of Parkinsonism. So this is the mechanism of action of the levodopa. It is usually combined with carbidopa. We cannot give the single, we can give combination. So what are the advantages of combination? Less dose of levodopa required and more effect of levodopa. If you combine with carbidopa, we will get more effect, and similarly at the same time we want less dose of the levodopa. Then increased half-life of levodopa. Then less side effects of levodopa peripherally. We can get side effects, no? So we can lessen the side effects. Vitamin B6 interaction does not occur. So these are the advantages of the combination. Now coming to the pharmacokinetics of the levodopa, it is absorbed orally by active transport and decreases by the presence of food. That's why we have to administer this levodopa before, that is before taking anything, or on empty stomach. Okay. So the bioavailability is mainly affected by amino acids present in the food. That's why we have to give on empty stomach. Means 30 to 60 minutes before meal. Distribution, it crosses blood-brain barrier. We already have seen in the mechanism. Then the plasma T-half of levodopa is 1 to 2 hours. Now this is a metabolism of levodopa. Here there are, we already said, by COMT inhibitors, MAO-B inhibitors, where these two drugs will act. No? So this is also the mechanism of those category of drugs. So here levodopa crosses blood-brain barrier, to the brain. So what will happen? This levodopa undergoes metabolism, that is coming by DDC, that is dopa decarboxylase enzyme, converted to dopamine, and this dopamine by the action of COMT, that is catechol orthomethyl transferase, converted to there are two metabolites will be formed, that is 3-MT, 3-methoxytyramine, whereas DOPAC, 3,4-dihydroxyphenyl acetic acid. These two are formed. Then these two are undergoes degradation. These two undergoes degradation. It forms homovanillic acid. So 3-MT by COMT it is converted to 3-MT, whereas by MAOB it is converted to DOPAC. So we have to inhibit if these two enzymes, then we can restore our dopamine levels in the brain. So that is a metabolism of levodopa in brain. Levodopa undergoes high first pass metabolism in GI, mucosa and liver. It is excreted through urine. Now coming to the pharmacodynamics, it has marked symptomatic improvement occurs in Parkinsonian patients. So if you use this levodopa, we can get the symptomatic treatment, symptomatic improvements in Parkinsonian patients. Effect on behavior, that is called as general alerting procedure. Whatever the effect of levodopa on behavior of the person, it is generally called as general alerting response. Then now coming to the CVS, it leads to the postural hypotension because it causes tachycardia because acting on beta adrenergic receptors. Dopamine and noradrenaline formed in brain decreases sympathetic flow, so that it leads to the postural hypotension. Now on CTZ, here dopaminergic receptors are present in this area and dopamine acts as an excitatory transmitter. So it leads to the nausea and vomiting. Now endocrine action, so it inhibits prolactin release. Then uses, where we already discussed from starting itself, it is used in the reduce the signs and symptoms of the Parkinson's disease. It does not, again after that also it does not stop the progression of the disease. Adverse effects. At the initiation of therapy, we are starting the drug, means that at that time we will get the CNS manifestations like euphoria, anxiety, agitation, insomnia, psychological disturbances as confusion, delusions, hallucinations. These are the initial therapy adverse side effects we will get. Later on we will get the dyskinesia, that is called as involuntary movements, which is corrected by dose reduction. GIT manifestations like nausea and vomiting because of due to stimulation of D2 receptors. Tolerance may develop to this adverse effect, but if nausea and vomiting persist, antiemetics are given. If it is not reduced, means that we can give the antiemetics like domperidone. Then constipation and bleeding peptic ulcer may also occur. This is also side effect in GIT. If it is CVS, cardiovascular system, it leads to the postural hypotension because of already we discussed decreases central sympathetic flow, tachycardia, hypertension. Whereas other side effects are alteration of smell, taste, sensation, abnormal movements, facial tics. After prolonged therapy, initial therapy we will get all these side effects. After prolonged therapy, so that is if you take the same drug 3 to 5 years, duration of beneficial effect shortens as therapy progress. If you are taking long time, means that whatever the useful beneficial effects are there, that will be reduced. Disease control become poor. Then fluctuation in symptoms occur frequently. This may be due to interaction of DOPAC, it is the metabolite of dopamine, with hydrogen peroxide, leading to formation of toxic oxygen free radicals. So due to the formation of these free radicals, it destroys dopamine storage vesicles. So that what will happen? The dopamine will be not stored in the storage vesicles. Whenever this is not stored, it will be not released into the neurons. So this can be prevented by MAO-B inhibitors as sericin. We already discussed in the case of the diagram. We have to decrease the concentration of DOPAC from dopamine by COMT, that is MAO-B inhibitors. Then on-off phenomena. It is maybe due to variable levels of dopamine in CNS. So in some cases it is very high and in some cases it is very slow. In on state, patient enjoys normal mobility, normal behavior, normal conditions they will enjoy. But in off state, what happens? Loss of beneficial effect of the drugs takes place. That is unable to raise from chair. Okay, then fluctuation in plasma level of drug with short half-life, that's all. And then treatment. Now, sustained release of formulation of levodopa with carbidopa. We have to give always with levodopa along with the carbidopa. Then COMT inhibitors, frequent administration of levodopa. These are the treatments in the case of these two side effects. Now, there are several interactions takes place with this levodopa in the same category itself also. Levodopa doesn't combine with non-selective MAO inhibitors. It leads to hypertensive crisis. And similarly, levodopa does not give with vitamin B6. If you give, it increases the metabolism of levodopa, therapeutic failure. Then levodopa doesn't give with reserpine phenothiazine. It blocks dopamine effect. Levodopa does not give with tricyclic antidepressants because it decreases the absorption of the levodopa. So these are all the interactions. We can get the contraindications like psychosis, narrow angle glaucoma, and melanoma. Melanoma means that tumor of melanin forming cells. Now coming to the carbidopa, it is peripheral decarboxylase inhibitor. Don't cross blood-brain barrier. That's why levodopa combined with the carbidopa we have to give. Currently use fixed combinations of 4:1 or 10:1 ratio of levodopa and carbidopa, as well as levodopa also combined with benzerazide in the ratio of 4:1. Advantages: increases bioavailability. Dopamine increases bioavailability of dopamine. Then dose of levodopa can be reduced. Because instead of 100% we can give 75% of levodopa and other combined with the carbidopa. Then prolongation of half-life of levodopa. Systemic concentration of dopamine, decreases systemic concentration of dopamine, so that what we will get, decreases incidence of the GI side effects. We are having GI side effects of levodopa, so that we have to reduce this GI side effects by reducing the concentration of dopamine. Cardiovascular complication, it also be minimized, better patient compliance. Dopamine agonist, an alternative to levodopa, is it is a dopamine agonist. These will act on striatal dopamine receptors even in advanced patients, do not require any enzymatic conversion. Now another drug is bromocriptine. So this bromocriptine comes under dopamine agonist. This is ergot derivative. Don't require any enzymatic conversion to active metabolites. Longer duration of action than levodopa, prevent motor complication. What is the mechanism? Mechanism is partial D1 agonist, strong D2 agonist. Uses, we know that it is used in Parkinsonism, then used in suppression of lactation, safer than estrogen. Acromegaly and ACTH dependent tumors. Here acromegaly is the chronic overproduction of growth hormone by the pituitary gland. So in those cases we can use this drug. Adverse effect, hallucinations, confusions and vomiting. Contraindications, we should not use in patients having peptic ulcer, myocardial infarction and mental illness. The next one is pergolide. This is also an ergot derivative like bromocriptine. Mechanism, it is agonist at D1 and D2 receptors. Pharmacokinetics, absorbed rapidly orally. Metabolism, we know that orally means at liver by cytochrome P450 system. Excretion through urine. It is used in idiopathic Parkinson's disease treatment. That is now what we are discussing. Adverse effects, we can get the dyspepsia, constipation and hallucinations. Here dyspepsia means that indigestion. It interacts with the pergolide, that is doesn't give with the pergolide, doesn't give with the cytochrome P182 inhibitor, that is ciprofloxacin and diltiazem. Then ropinirole, mechanism of action, it is D2 receptor, selectively at D2 receptor and less at D1 like bromocriptine. Pharmacokinetics, it is also rapidly absorbed. Maximum plasma concentration is reached in 1 to 2 hours after oral administration. Bioavailability is only 50% because it undergoes first pass metabolism. It is metabolized by the liver to inactive metabolite. Less than 10% excreted unchanged in the urine. Therapeutic uses, the same thing, idiopathic Parkinson's disease like adverse effects, dyspepsia, constipation and hallucinations. Then pramipexole, this is non-ergot derivative dopamine agonist. We already discussed dopamine agonists are of two types, ergot derivatives and non-ergot derivatives. So this is a non-ergot derivative. It binds to presynaptic and postsynaptic dopamine D2 and D3 receptors, but has the highest affinity for the D3 receptor. It stimulates presynaptic and postsynaptic dopamine D2 receptors. So D2 receptors will be stimulated. So that what will happen? It binds to the dopamine receptors on the postsynaptic membrane, where it gives a response. is used in Parkinson's disease as an adjunct to levodopa in patients with advanced Parkinson's disease. Now, adverse effects in early Parkinson's disease: nausea, dizziness, constipation and hallucinations. In patients with advanced disease, orthostatic hypotension, that is called as postural hypotension. It interacts with so many drugs like cimetidine, ranitidine, diltiazem, verapamil, quinidine, tramtrine, decrease the oral clearance of pramipexole by 20%. So, we should not give with these drugs. Then now coming to the MAO inhibitors, two different types of isoenzymes, as we know that MAO A and MAO B. It is only B is responsible for oxidative metabolism of dopamine in brain. Now, in that first drug is salicylin. It is a selective irreversible inhibitor of MAO-B. Advantage: prolonging T-half of endogenously produced dopamine. Then increases anti-Parkinson effect of dopamine and decreases on-off whereas wear-off phenomenon of the side adverse effects of the levodopa. Now, this is an MAO inhibitor. As we know that the levodopa is coming to crosses the blood-brain barrier. It reaches to the brain, that is CNS. Then it is converted to dopamine. Then this dopamine by COMT it is converted to 3-MT, whereas by MAO-B it is converted to DOPAC. So we have to decrease the concentration of the DOPAC by MAO-B, so that we have to inhibit. If you inhibit MAO-B, so that we can increase the concentration of dopamine in the brain. So we already discussed the mechanism in the diagram. Pharmacokinetics: it is extensively metabolized in the liver. The metabolites are desmethylsalicylin and methamphetamine. So these are two already metabolites of the amphetamine. Then adverse effects: postural hypotension, confusion and psychosis. It interacts with drugs like tricyclic antidepressants, pethidine. So this pethidine is useful in excitement and rigidity, and also interacts with the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So we should not give this drug in patients with convulsive disorder. Convulsions are there, no? So if those people are having those disease, we cannot give this drug. Then the another drug is rasaziline. This is a newer selective MAO-B inhibitor. Advantages of this drug with the previous one are 5 times more potent than salicylin. It is longer acting, not metabolized to amphetamine, does not produce any excitatory side effects. Now another one is next COMT inhibitor. As till now we discussed MAO inhibitors. It is inhibit the formation of DOPAC from dopamine. Now it is COMT inhibitors. It inhibits the formation of 3-MT from dopamine. Then that first drug is entacapone, reversible COMT inhibitors, only periphery action. This mechanism of action is entacapone is a selective and reversible inhibitor of COMT. So adverse effects: dyskinesia, nausea, diarrhea, abdominal pain and urinary discoloration. It increases the side effects of the levodopa. Then tolcapone, another drug, is also it is a COMT inhibitor. Both peripheral and central action takes place. It is occasionally associated with side effect is hepatotoxicity. Then another one is dopamine facilitator. The drug under this is amantadine. It is actually antiviral agent, effective against influenza A2 virus. It acts mainly presynaptically and postsynaptically. That's why we can increase the concentration of dopamine in CNS. Presynaptically, increases the release of stored catecholamine from intact dopaminergic terminus. So another mechanism is there, that is inhibits catecholamine reuptake process at the presynaptic terminus. So this is presynaptically how it is acting as dopamine facilitator. Now coming to the postsynaptically, activation of dopamine receptors, anticholinergic action, NMDA receptor blocking effect. Okay, presynaptically increases the release of stored catecholamine from dopaminergic neurons. Then only we can increase to the postsynaptic. Inhibits catecholamine reuptake. So if you inhibit reuptake, then it goes to the postsynaptic. Uses only in milder cases as monotherapy, supplement to levodopa for advanced cases. It serves to suppress motor fluctuations and abnormal movements. Side effects are insomnia, dizziness, confusion and nightmares. Then after that, central anticholinergic drugs. These are generally effective in drug-induced Parkinsonism. Antimuscarinic agents improve tremor and rigidity but have little effect on bradykinesia. So mainly it is used in idiopathic Parkinsonism, that is mild to moderate symptoms of Parkinson's disease, as well as anti-dopaminergic drug induced, that is also called as iatrogenic Parkinsonism. Whenever anti-dopaminergic drugs are used now, so in that case what will happen, dopamine levels decreases, so that is called as iatrogenic Parkinsonism. In that condition we can give anticholinergics. Anticholinergics we will give means that what increases the acetylcholine activity, so that balances the dopamine and the acetylcholine. Main action is centrally, so minimal peripheral action, cheaper and better tolerated than levodopa. The adverse effect is dry mouth, constipation and drowsiness. Then antihistaminic, arphenadrine, promethazine. These are H1 blockers. Addition, antimuscarinic action of acetylcholine. Then promethazine decreases tremors, rigidity and sialorrhea. Sialorrhea means that inability to control oral secretions, that is called as sialorrhea. These are the two drugs comes under antihistaminic drugs. These are also can be used in the treatment of Parkinson's disease because these are H1 blockers, that is histaminic blockers. So what will happen, in addition to that, it is also having antimuscarinic action of acetylcholine. So anticholinergic. It also acts as anticholinergic. That's why we can use it in Parkinson's disease. Now coming to the drug-induced Parkinsonism, it is blocked by dopamine receptor in the striatum. There is no deficiency of dopamine. Example, antipsychotic drugs. As we know already, these antipsychotic drugs, haloperidol, phenothiazines, these are all dopamine agonists. Dopamine blockers, high potent D2 blockers. So that these drugs induce Parkinsonism. Because of we already discussed in antipsychotic drugs, this is one of the effect of using antipsychotic drugs, Parkinson's disease. Because these drugs are D2 blockers, dopamine blockers. So D2 blockers means it decreases the concentration of dopamine, thereby it leads to the Parkinson's disease. So reserpine, this is also dopamine depleting agent. Metoclopramide blocks D2 receptor. Then MPTP, that is 1-methyl-4-phenyl-1,2,3,6 tetrahydropyridine, is MAO-B. It is converted to neurotoxin. Oxidative stress. So all these leads to the formation of Parkinson's disease. So with this, Parkinson disease is over. Okay. Then now